The Esme Fragment Fusion event has begun today, and Plarium has done it again. They have changed the rules. This event calendar looks different than any event calendar we've seen before. I'm going to show you why it's different, and then we're going to create our no-fail fusion plan so that those of us who are going for Esme have the best chance of success. I am Colred. This is Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get started. Just a quick reminder to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and consider joining our Discord community. Also, don't miss my next Takeover Tuesday live stream. I go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, February 11th. I hope to see you there. This is the February Fragment event calendar for Esme the Dancer, and it is different than anything we've ever seen before. It might not look that weird to you yet, but hold on, I'm going to explain it to you because it took me a while to figure out exactly what was happening. For point of reference, I want to talk about a classic fusion event calendar. So the classic fusion event was the first form of fusion event, and the hybrid fusion events and the fragment fusion events have modeled their event calendars based on the classic fusion. Now, the classic fusion always had 16 events because you needed 16 copies of rare champions, right? You get 4 groups of 4 that would fuse into the 4 epics, and then the 4 epics would fuse into the the fusion legendary. So you always needed 16 copies, so 16 events made sense. Now, every once in a while, you would get a 17th event that might be like a bonus event. And that could be true for a classic fusion or a hybrid fusion or a fragment fusion. But fragment fusions specifically didn't really need to conform to this 16 event calendar because you could just mess with the number of fragments that each event rewarded or awarded and therefore change the number. So sometimes we've actually seen fragment event calendars with only 15 events. This one has 14. Now, I can't recall another time that we've had 14 events or fewer. I think this is the fewest number of events we've ever had. Now, there's been another change here, which is that typically the total number of fragments for a fragment event is 130, not 125. So when I saw this at first, I was like, okay, we have 14 events. I don't know if that's good or bad. We have 125 fragments. That feels bad. That feels like 5 fewer fragments means it's going to be harder to complete this event. But then I noticed that we actually only have 1 tournament reward here. Now, typically there are 20 fragments, 2 tournaments where you can get these extra fragments. So the tournament leaderboards are always a little bit weird because this is not 10 fragments for everybody. Certainly, it's only going to be the top 2 finishers. And even the top 2 finishers don't get 10 fragments. They get 5 fragments each. So this is misleading. This is just confusing, I think. So you don't actually ever have the number of fragments available that they tell you. You just don't. In this particular case, if you win or come in second in the champion training tournament, you would have 120 available. You can't get 125. No one can get 125. But if you are a free-to-play player, you just want to plan, as reliably as possible, you basically do these events like this tournament doesn't exist, right? Or at least the reward doesn't exist. So what we really have here is 115 fragments. We all have 115 fragments available to us, and we want to plan to skip 15 fragments. Now, preferably, you want to skip fragments towards the end, right? Because you want to make sure that you didn't mess up, right? Or if you mess up early, then you can adjust and hopefully pick up the fragments that you need later on. But for instance, I wouldn't say, okay, I'm going to skip this Dungeon Divers event right here. I wouldn't do that typically because I would rather skip a Dungeon Divers event later on rather than early on because that just makes it more reliable, right? Especially if something happens in real life, I get called into work or the baby's screaming or, somebody gets sick and I got to go out of town. I don't know, whatever happens. Real life happens sometimes. It throws your schedule off and you can't complete all of these events and tournaments. So again, plan to complete as many of these as possible, and then you kind of leave them off the end. Now, normally, if this were a normal fragment event calendar, I'd say, well, this is really friendly. I can actually skip this entire Champion Chase tournament. It's been a long time since they've allowed us to skip one of the 2 shard events. That actually would be nice. But you can't probably do that here. Okay, at least you could, but it's going to cost you. So in terms of the number of events, when we're talking about 16 events, right? We normally have 16 events. So first of all, we have all of the dungeon events, right? We have one of each: Spider, Fire Knight, Dragon, and Ice Golem. So that's typically 4 events. In addition to that, we have 3 Dungeon Divers events. So Dungeon Divers, that we get 3 of those. We have 2 arena events. We have usually 3 champion training events. I think we have 3. Yeah, we have 3 champion training. Actually, no, I'm sorry. We have 2 champion training. We have 3 artifact enhancements, which are now called gear enhancements. So gear enhancements, we get 3 of those. So yeah, champion training, we usually have 1 tournament and 1 event. Sorry about that. Okay, and then finally, we have a summon, 1 summon rush, and then 1 champion chase. That's the most typical combo. So if you add that all up, 4 plus 3 is 7, 9, 11, 14, 15, 16. That's 16 events. So we lost 2 events here. But when I look at this, what I realize is I'm actually missing 3 events. There is no summon rush here, but there is a hero's path. And this hero's path is worth 25 fragments. That's a ton of fragments for 1 event. But this hero's path is basically equal to, well, first of all, we lost the summon rush. And we lost 2 Dungeon Divers events. Now you might think, oh, great, because Dungeon Divers events are hard. I don't think that's going to be to our benefit this time. I'm going to explain why. So we can't skip this hero's path, right? You can't do it. It has 25 fragments. We only have 115 fragments available. If you skip this entire thing, you'd only get 90 fragments. So you have a few options here. You're going to need a minimum of 10 of the fragments in the hero's path. If you do that and you only get 10 of the fragments in the hero's path, then you need to complete the champion chase tournament. Now, this may be the best approach because remember, this weekend, right, starting Friday and going through Sunday, actually Monday morning, this will be a 2 times, I expect it to be 2 times sacred event. It will be a 2 times weekend. I expect it to be sacreds. It could be ancients. It won't be voids. It could be all shards. It could be primals. They could mess with us a little bit. But we have had, we had sacreds, then we had ancients, then we had voids. So if they're going in order, they would wrap around to sacreds again. This is the reverse order of what they used to do. So like the order does change. And when the order changes, sometimes this isn't reliable. So this could be 2 times primals, could be 2 times everything. It will be a 2 times weekend though. So doing a champion chase tournament during a 2 times sacred weekend is actually easier. It's better. Plus, because it's a champion chase tournament, you can use fragment champions and permanent fusions and stuff like that. So if you've been saving up, this might actually be relatively easy for you. But this hero's path is going to be shards and it's going to be artifacts from dungeons. That's what it's going to be. And here's the thing. This hero's path is only 3 days long. Typically, a Dungeon Divers, like this event, can be 3 days. You can also get 4-day Dungeon Divers. We've even had 5-day Dungeon Divers, right? So we're talking about, say on average, we're talking about something like 7 or 8 days of dungeon diving points crammed into 3 days of this hero's path. Plus the shards you would probably pull for the summon rush anyway. Now, in addition to these fragments, I highly expect there to be souls available here. I think it's going to be souls for the duo. I think we're going to get Esme souls, and the Esme soul, and I think we're also going to get the Moto soul. So they did this most recently for Christmas, right? When they did Lady Noel and Sir Nicholas, we had the hero's path that gave us both souls. I think that's what's going to happen here. But we need to get at least 10 fragments here. And if you're going for any of the souls, you might have to pick up more. And this is probably going to be a hero's path that requires a lot of keys. There are going to be a whole lot of paths. So you're going to want to watch very carefully for this hero's path. You're going to want to find all the information you can, because this will determine whether or not you're able to complete this entire fusion. Now, it actually feels like this will make this fragment fusion very difficult for any of you who are playing in the free-to-play challenge. If you are on your challenge accounts and you have been saving for this fusion and you decided to go for it, You're going to have to play very, very carefully. The nice thing, if there is a nice thing, is potentially you could do a lot of this with energy. You may be able to save some shards here. It may end up being a little bit friendly from a shard standpoint. You're still going to have to complete the champion chase, but you may be able to save all of your shards for that weekend and do the champion chase with your 2x sacreds. But this hero's path is going to take a lot of effort, and potentially it's going to take a lot of energy in a very short period of time. Now, one of the things that normally happens with any fusion event is that you get energy every day, right? You get your passive energy, you get all your energy rewards, your daily missions, quests, everything. But here, all of the energies, first of all, there's no energy requirement after the Ice Golem tournament. So for the last 2 days, there's no energy here. No energy needs. That energy that you get is not helping you, right? So you really only have, out of these 15 days, you have 13 days of regenerative energy. Plus, you don't want to really start on Monday. You don't want to do anything today. You want to start tomorrow when this Dungeon Divers event starts. Maybe you could put a little bit of energy into champion training now. That would be okay. Should be what you're doing today. Do not put any energy into Spider Tournament today. Okay. Now, we know that the tournaments normally take... you know what? I'm going to clear this board so you can see it a little bit more easily. So, I think what we should do is we should plan to start the Spider Tournament with this Dungeon Divers event. And again, this is going to be 2k energy that goes in here. You're going to need a lot of energy for this Hero's Path. It could be as much as like 20,000 energy, maybe just for the Hero's Path. You don't have to do all of it, right? I don't know what the minimum is going to be. Could it be 5k energy? If it's 2 Dungeon Divers, each Dungeon Divers is typically 5k energy. So let's say they give us roughly the same number of points and the rewards are really efficient. This is probably going to be a 10k energy Hero's Path. I think that's reasonable to expect. Could it be less? Yes. If you're going for those minimal 10 fragments. Could it be more? Certainly. There's some variability here. So it's hard to plan, and this is one of the reasons why I don't like it when they change things on us, right? Because they put us in an information deficit, right? They're blacking out some of what we typically understand about these fusion events. All right, so normally the Dungeon Divers would be 5k, and we want to embed all of that spider energy into this 5k. That's going to make this Spider Tournament be free. Now, the Fire Knight Tournament is actually interesting because we could put it into the first Dungeon Divers event or put it into the Hero's Path. And honestly, I don't know that one is better than the other. I think it kind of depends on when you're getting your energy and also what time of day this Hero's Path starts and stuff like that. And the reason I don't know that it matters is because either way, you need to spend 2k energy here, and it's either going to go into this Dungeon Divers event for free, or it's going to go into this Hero's Path for free, right? So you can choose where you want to put it. That's a little bit of flexibility here. Now, the Dragon Tournament, all 2k, should definitely go into the Hero's Path. So you want basically to do it all on Sunday. It's going to go Sunday into Monday, and it's going to go into here. So you're getting at least 2,000 of this energy free. So let's say you put this 4,000 energy into the first Dungeon Divers. You're going to need, one extra 1,000, right? And then you're going to put this 2,000 into the Hero's Path. You're probably going to need 8,000 extra energy over 3 days' time. That's a lot. And it has to be a Dungeon Diver. So where do you put that energy? Well, I think you have two choices. One is you could put a bunch into campaign in this 1 day window. But campaign is less efficient. You get fewer Dungeon Divers points per energy than you do for the dungeon. Your other option, I think, don't put it into Fire Knight, don't put it into Dragon Tournament unless there's like a really good, triple drop rate for something that you need. Like if they're doing triple Savage or triple Speed or something, then you could do that. But I actually think this is where we want to put energy into the Queen of Hearts. You want to put it into the event dungeon, get your pinpoint gear. And so, potentially you're looking at maybe somewhere in the vicinity of 8k to as much as maybe like 18k energy that could be going into the Queen of Hearts here that is not in an event, but would go in here. Now, potentially you could put a little bit more into Dragon or a little bit more into Fire Knight or whatever, and like go and get the top rewards if there are good rewards on the track, that everybody gets. But for the most part, I'm going to be thinking about Queen of Hearts here, and I'm going to be putting a lot of energy in. So if that allows me to get my 10 fragments here, and then I pull my shards during Champion Chase Tournament and whatever additional fragment champions I have that I need. That's good. One thing to remember is that this window right here is CVC. That's just something to think about. So, you're going to want to do your champion training probably in that window. You're probably going to want to do your spider tournament in that window. Get as many points for your, I think it's a PRCVC. I'm not 100% sure. You can let me know in the comments below. I think it's a PRCVC. So go and get your points in there in that window. Now, as far as the gear enhancement is concerned, these are 20 million silver roughly each. I'm not too worried about it. If we're dropping all of this extra energy into the Hero's Path, into the Queen of Hearts dungeon, or into Dragon, or Fire Knight, or whatever, we're going to be making silver hand over fist. So, honestly, the first one is maybe the trickiest one, but we've just had a spider tournament. I don't think silver is going to be an issue. I think silver is going to be easy, right? The arenas are always easy. That's not a problem. Just be active. It doesn't really matter where you are. As long as you're in silver, you're probably fine. And then, again, we've got the 2K for the Ice Golem energy. Where should this go, by the way? It doesn't matter. There's no double dip available, right? The only thing maybe that you could do is double dip a little bit with champion training if you have an Ice Golem 20 team that can use food. That's all that you're going to get. But this 2K energy is just, it's solo. There's nothing to synergize with it. So if we're looking at our entire event calendar, normally we only need somewhere between like 16 and 17,000 energy. That's like a typical fragment event number. But if we're looking at it this way, we're going to need 5K for this Dungeon Divers and 10K here. And then we're going to need 2K here, right? Plus whatever we're using for champion training. So this is going to be a minimum of 17,000 energy. And if you do the full Hero's Path, if you're trying to get all 25 fragments, either to save yourself, shards or whatever, or just because you want the souls, you might be looking at something in the vicinity of like maybe 27,000 energy. Sorry. So 27,000 energy, maybe 30,000 energy, depending on how much energy this Hero's Path actually takes. But I fully expect this to be a difficult Hero's Path. This is going to be a tough Hero's Path, especially because it's only 3 days. Okay, so outside of that Hero's Path, it's a relatively straightforward, relatively easy fusion event, with the one exception that this Ice Golem tournament is a bit of a waste, but we see that from time to time. That's not really new, okay? And also be aware that if you're a spender or you typically rely on trying to win tournaments, there are only 5 fragments available to you this time around instead of 10 fragments from 2 tournaments. All right, I think that is it for this no-fail fusion plan. I hope this helped you out. It may change your decision about whether or not you're going to pursue Esme, but regardless, if you're not 100% sure, what I would suggest you could do is kind of wait until Thursday. This is typically where we'll get news about this Hero's Path, and so you don't have to do anything today on Monday anyway. So all you have to do is kind of stick around in the Spider Tournament, the Champion Training Event, the Dungeon Divers. You don't even have to complete the Gear Enhancement. You don't even have to complete any of these because you're going to get an extra day. So just wait for the news to come out on Thursday before you decide to bail out or fully commit. And that's probably the best bet. And I'm sorry, I can't give you more information than that because Plarium doesn't want us to have it. So that's it. That is it for me today. Let me know in the comments below. Does this change your thinking about going for Esme the Dancer? And what do you think about this Hero's Path? Is it going to be friendly or is it going to be unfriendly? And are you planning to complete it with energy, or are you going to use shards like it's a normal summon rush? I'd love to hear your strategy because we can always share that information, and hopefully the more we talk about it, the better our plan will become. Thanks so much for hanging out. I have been Colred. I will see you in another video soon.